Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. My name is Trisha and today on the Aspiring Home Cook, I'm going to share with you another easy way to jazz up your daily rotis or chapatis. Now we know that the basic version of Indian flatbread are called rotis or chapatis, and when you take that up one notch, you usually end up with something that's called a paratha, which very often is a layered bread that's stuffed with a vegetable or even a meat filling of some sort. There is another type of paratha where you add some extra ingredients while kneading the dough and they result in a delicious version of the chapati. Today we're going to make some spinach parathas. Don't turn away just yet. These are super simple to make and you will not believe how tasty they turn out to be. Before we go on over and take a look at the recipe, if you're new here, please subscribe to my channel, and once you do that, don't forget to click that little bell icon so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. Alright, so let's head on over to the kitchen now and start working on these spinach parathas. We're going to start by prepping our spinach. I've got a small bunch of spinach over here. The stalks are fairly tender, so I've left them in. You can trim them as required, wash them thoroughly and drain off any excess water. Now once you do that, roughly chop up that spinach and add it to the jar of your blender. Now to this we're going to add a few things. I've got 2 red bird's eye chilies, an inch of ginger and about half a teaspoon to 3/4 of a teaspoon of cumin powder. I'm going to add a little salt and a teaspoon of amchur powder or dried mango powder. If you don't have this, you can just use some lemon juice instead. And you're going to now blitz this up using very minimum amount of water at this stage. I'm just going to add a couple of tablespoons or so just to get everything going in the blender. Then simply pop the lid on and blitz this till you're left with a nice smooth puree. You should end up with something that looks like this. Check for seasoning and add a little more salt if you need to, but remember we're also going to season our flour to make our chapatis or parathas in this case. I'm just going to add a touch more of salt over here because my mix needed it. And I'm just going to stir that together using that spatula. It's going to mix through the dough anyway. We move on to making our dough. In a large mixing bowl or any container that you normally knead your dough, take 2 cups of whole wheat flour and add a little salt. Remember that your spinach puree also has some salt. Now this next ingredient I feel is extremely important for any good tasty paratha. These are carom seeds or ajwain seeds. I'm just going to take about a teaspoon of them, roughly crush them between the palm of my hands to release their flavors and the oils, and add that to the dough. And then I'm just going to mix all the dry ingredients well. Make a little well in the center and add all of your spinach puree. Now I know that for the quantity of spinach that I've taken, about 2 cups of flour is absolutely perfect. So just dip in the whole lot of that spinach puree. And we're slowly going to incorporate all the dry flour into that little puree. Now the puree won't be sufficient to bind all that flour into a dough. We are going to add more water, but we're going to do our best to try and mix that up as best we can to begin with. Now once most of that spinach puree has been incorporated into that flour, I'm going to add a little bit of water into the mixer that I used to blend my spinach leaves and spices. And I'm going to give that a good swirl just so that I can extract any of that leftover puree in the jar of my blender. And you're going to start off by gradually adding that to the dough. Knead that in. And you're going to add more water as required to knead everything into a nice smooth pliable dough. Now once your dough has come together and it's no longer sticky and everything's nice, smooth and pliable like you see here, you know your dough is ready. If it's still a little tacky when it all comes together and it's sticking to your palms uncontrollably, add a little more dry flour and knead that through. Alright, now all we'll do is cover this ball of dough up with a dry kitchen towel and you're going to let this rest for about 15 to 20 minutes. After 15 to 20 minutes, you're going to get back to your dough and you'll notice that it has considerably relaxed and is much easier to work with. You're now going to portion this out into smaller portions that you're going to roll into your flatbread. Again, the size is up to you depending on how big or how small you'd like your parathas. Out of a batch this size, you'd comfortably be able to get 9 to 10 parathas depending on the size you've gone for. And then taking each portion, you're just going to roll them out into a nice smooth little ball and set them aside. Now at this point, if you haven't done so already, I would recommend you get a pan on the stove and start heating that up on a medium heat. I got 9 portions, and now that they've all been rolled out, I'm going to cover this while I work on one portion at a time. Now working with one portion at a time, I'm just going to roll it into a nice little ball and flatten it slightly into a disc like you see here between the palm of my hands. I'm going to lightly flour that disc using some dry whole wheat flour, and I'm going to flour the surface that I'm rolling on and the rolling pin lightly as well. Then, applying gentle pressure, you're going to roll this out into a chapati. You're looking for something fairly thin, not as thick as you would have a stuffed paratha or a naan. While keeping the dry flour that you use to a minimum, if you find that the paratha is sticking to any of the surfaces, add a little dry flour to keep things moving. Now when you're done rolling your paratha, if there's too much of dry flour, simply dust that off. If not, you're ready to move on to the pan and start cooking your paratha. Now gently place your paratha on a hot pan and let it start cooking off. After a few seconds, I like to move that around just a couple of times so that there's even heat distribution and cooks through evenly. Please be cautious while moving it around. If you're not confident using your fingers, use a spatula instead. Once you see little bubbles appearing, flip your paratha over and you're going to gently press the edges of the paratha down just to make contact with the pan and help them cook. You don't want to use too much pressure here, you're just coaxing it down towards the pan. And I do that for a few seconds until I can see bubbles appear through this side as well, and I'm going to flip that over. Now like you can see, both sides have gently cooked so far. It's not completely cooked. I'm going to continue to let this cook off. Now I'm going to use a few drops of ghee or clarified butter, spread that around and flip the paratha again. You're just going to need a few seconds on that side to help that ghee warm up a little. In the meanwhile, spread a few more drops of ghee on the second side and spread that around. And flip your paratha over. Again, just for a few seconds to let that ghee warm through. Once you see little brown specks appearing right through your chapati or paratha in this case, you know that your paratha is ready. If there are certain spots on the edges that you feel are undercooked, spend a little time and make sure that they cook off well. And like you can see here, my paratha has cooked. And in the same way, I'm going to cook off the rest of my parathas too. Now the best way to enjoy any paratha or even chapati is piping hot off the pan. I like to have them with a little smear of butter, but of course you can serve this with any curry or vegetable of your choice. It is also very typical to enjoy these parathas with some yogurt and some achar or Indian pickles. So whichever way you choose to enjoy them, I really hope you enjoyed today's recipe. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with family and friends that you think will enjoy it too. I hope you get a chance to try this recipe out soon. It's an absolutely delicious version of a flatbread, and it's a good way to include an extra vegetable in your daily intake. So guys, that's all from me today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to see you really soon with another delicious recipe. So till then, take care. Bye.